reason it's called self-checkout is because initially when I was making this beat, it was actually going to be a lyrical tune, and it was all going to be about, you know, the future of technology and sort of how degrading it is, and self-checkouts and electric cars that don't even go that far, and like stuff like that. And I started writing these lyrics, but then I kind of stopped because I went off into this sort of realm of making this more of just an electronic tune. But then I retained some of the vocals that I'd recorded and just kind of used them as samples instead. Because I just liked the way the tune was going, and by the time I'd carried on working with it, there just wasn't enough room left for vocals. And, you know, maybe I might remix it at some point, probably not, I don't usually do that. But yeah, this is the track as it is, and there's just a few things that are in it. Self-checkout. And it does drop back into that sort of driving bass line that's in the first section after this. Again, another little sample down there. Quite an interesting sample, this one, actually. Yeah, it's only really tiny, and it just fills that hole as it drops back into the next 8 bars. So yeah, that's it. And mix-wise, there's quite a few things going on with plugins, as usual. I'm just trying to see if there's anything sort of specific in there. Yeah, there's a lot of the Tau filter too, which is sidechained to a MIDI track, which gives it that sort of pumping, sort of warping effect, typical sidechain effect. Then there's a few other bits going on there. This Cloud Seed reverb, which is a free plugin actually, and I really like this reverb. It really adds some kind of like atmospheric tones. And you know what the thing is about this, it sounds pretty good just as it is when you load it up. You don't really have to mess around with it too much, which is great. And then as far as like processing is concerned on the actual track, there's a little bit of processing on what you call the master bus, the 2 bus, or whatever you want to call it, the stereo out. And there's this, the Shadow Hills mastering compressor. Which, even on both stages on that, the optical and the discrete compression, it's really only very gentle. It's just taking off some of those peaks, so it's kind of leveling everything off. You can just sort of see the compressor responding to the kick and the snare, so it's just kind of like tucking them back into the mix slightly before it goes into anything else. So that's that. Then that's going into, it's a stock plugin in Cubase, but it's tape saturation, and I've got like 50%. Basically emulates, or tries to emulate, recording onto tape, which just gives it this kind of softening tone, but a boost in the mid-range, and it tames the top end and low end. I just really like this plugin, especially on the whole mix, because it just boosts some of those mid-range frequencies, which are kind of the most important. So that's going into that. Then I'm using this multiband plugin from Analog Obsession, which is then just compressing those mid-range frequencies, which have just been kind of brought up by the tape saturation, and then they're being controlled again with a little bit of this sort of compression on the mid-range. So you can see again here, it's only gentle, and the main thing it's detecting is the kick and the snare as it cuts through on the middle, and again just tucking them back in gently. After that, I've got this black box analog design plugin, which is just saturating the whole mix, not too aggressively. And this plugin isn't as good as the hardware, obviously. I mean, this plugin I think was around. So yeah, I just had a look, and the hardware version of this goes for around. I've just seen one for around £3,500, but it's still a really good plugin. And I'm just using this on the whole mix to really sort of saturate the mix and get some additional volume out of it, and you can really tell that this is on it. It has a very distinct sound, so it is running through this, which is really adding some character to it. Then after that, I'm going through this thing called Coffee Pun, and I'm just boosting some of the low frequencies and a very small amount of the top frequencies there as well. I really like this plugin. When you boost the low frequencies with this, it's a really warm tone, and yeah, it just sounds really nice. But I'm only using this kind of like gently on the whole mix. Then after that, I'm going through a bandpass filter, which is just filtering the bottom and the top end frequencies, so taking out some of that digital kind of harshness and rolling off at the bottom, so there's no real muddy frequencies right down there in the low end. And then after that, it's going into this limiter, which is bypassed at the moment, but when you hear the actual final version that's coming out, you will hear all the processing. So there's quite a bit of processing on there actually that's adding to the whole tone of the track. So this is it. It's called Self-Checkout, and it is coming out very soon. I will be posting links about for this, so when I do, please check it out. It's always much appreciated. That's it for this video. Take it easy, stay creative, keep smiling, sound.